Grand Rounds. We're starting to record this. It is my real honor to have Claudio Pannunzio on presenting on Wise Hope, a radical mind shift for cancer rehabilitation. And what's fantastic about this is he was sort of found and recruited by Mackenzie Pergolotti, I believe, and others, because he'd given such an inspirational talk that they saw. So they suggested him for this. I'm going to get out of the way and look forward to hearing what he has to say. His bio is worth reading. If I were to try to do justice to it, it would really be a bit of a travesty. So I encourage all of you to go through, and I hope he shares some of the things he does outside in his many hats.
Dr. Stubblefield, you're very kind. Thank you. So thank you, everybody. First and foremost, welcome here. Before we begin, I just want to share that I have, as you might have read in the bio, I'm a 2 times cancer survivor. So I feel compelled to begin by expressing to all of you who work with patients who are afflicted by cancer my boundless gratitude for the invaluable support you give to them. The gift of your presence in the life of someone affected by cancer goes beyond your work in helping them maximize or regain their physical, cognitive, and emotional function. You have the ability to help them reignite the flames of fire of hope that when you are with cancer are consistently put out by the winds of pain and desperation that devastatingly blow through the life of cancer patients. I've been there and experienced those bone-chilling winds, so it is from the deepest of my heart that I want to thank you for all you have done, what you're doing, and what you will do to alleviate the suffering of cancer patients. Thank you. The scope of this presentation is really not to share my journey through cancer, rather share with you what helped me maintain my sanity the 2 times that I was diagnosed with cancer. I was first diagnosed with a stage 3 prostate, and 4 years ago with a stage 3 pancreatic. I underwent an 11-hour Whipple, followed by chemo treatment. So I want to share with you how in the midst of all of it, I developed a concept of hope that helped me overcome my darkest moments, and that you might want to weave into your conversation with your patients, with family members and friends who unfortunately are diagnosed with cancer. My life started with hope. I hoped to survive a very violent father, and I hoped to survive the bullying at school that I had to endure. So in life, while some of my hopes came true, others did not, and those that didn't really pan out, really hurt. Especially my father's violence and the school bullying, which really prompted me to find ways to defend myself. And Elena, if we can go to the second slide. So my journey of 30 years plus in the martial art world began. I trained hard and I earned high-level black belts in Japanese, Korean, Chinese disciplines, gaining a physical and mental fortitude that for the first time in my life gave me the confidence that I was able to defend myself from anything. But despite my samurai training and knowledge of ninja techniques to aptly detect enemies, in 2006, my first cancer sneaked up upon me. At that time, there was no sword, no spear, no kick, no punch that could neutralize it. I was hijacked. I really felt that I was hijacked. So when the doctor dropped the C-bomb on me, I felt paralyzed by a plethora of emotions never experienced before. A threat that left me in a devastating desperation, as the immediate fear of dying was the only thing that incessantly pervaded my mind. Regrettably, that's the feeling that the vast majority of individuals experience when learning about their cancer. So I could not shake off the feeling of having been hijacked. Who, me? I was trained in detecting the stealthiest of my enemies, but I didn't see cancer coming. So soon I found out that scientific research confirmed that my feeling was a legit one, as indeed part of my brain had really been hijacked. That is called amygdala hijack. And it's exactly what I experience and what cancer patients experience. Amygdala hijack is a term coined by a psychologist, Daniel Goleman, to describe an immediate, overwhelming emotional response out of proportion to a stimulus that has triggered a more significant emotional threat. The amygdala perceives a threat and triggers a fight or flight response before any of the cortical centers can fully assess the situation. So essentially what happened? There is an hijack of the rational response process. That threat causes the amygdala to shut off, to disable the frontal lobes and take control of our emotional responses, and often engendering inappropriate or irrational behavior, such as we shout at someone who loves us, who's trying to take care of us, or loss of any rational thought, inability to think clearly, and aggressiveness. So one of the most common reaction of cancer patients to the cancer hijack is retreat for protection. Our first instinct is to isolate ourselves. As the news of cancer sinks in, it makes us lose touch with our fundamental human capacity to bridge our perceived separation and connect with others. So what happened? We disengage. And in doing so, we plant the seeds of suffering for ourselves and those around us. So the more pain we experience, the more we become selective about what and who we let into our awareness. We enclose ourselves in a tight circle. We build up humongous concrete walls around us in the mistaken assumption that we are safe, or we will be safe. Sadly, this leads to cutting ourselves off from the richness of what truly supports us. So in the deep darkness of our isolation, we set ourselves on a path on which fear, anger, despair, and hopelessness become our travel companions. So no matter how tight shut we keep our eyes, no matter how deep in the dark we go to avoid seeing the reality of our cancer, our problem doesn't dwell without, but within. So we have to find ways, and in your work, you can encourage your patients to patiently bear witness to whatever they are experiencing, to whatever emotion or feeling is arising in the present moment for them, to be strong, to recognize, name, and express, verbalize those emotions, and above all, to find the courage to keep their eyes open, to face what's coming up in the moment. Why? Because by doing so, we empower ourselves to take skillful action based on clarity and wisdom, rather than being paralyzed by fear and despair. I do a lot of volunteer work. I work with the Cancer Hope Network. I work with another organization called TPIU, The Patient Is You. I am a trained chaplain with the U.S. Chaplaincy Corps. I am blessed today that our Director General is part of this audience, and I'm very happy of that. So in my work as a chaplain, as a volunteer, I invite cancer patients to persevere with fortitude. And when fear shows up, try something different, to rest in the stillness of each breath and in the solidity of their fate, wherever that is. When I was diagnosed with cancer, my immediate reaction was, I do lunch, I do dinner, I do cocktails, I don't do cancer. And unfortunately, cancer mercilessly demolishes our life plans. It forcefully crams into our already busy schedule doctor visits, surgeries, chemo treatments, days when pains make us entirely useless. All things that we tenaciously refuse to consider as part of our life. These are very painful changes in our routine that makes us suffer. So, however, what we need to understand and accept is that suffering is not caused by the changes, but by our attachment to the idea of how our life should be. In other words, we attach ourselves every day to a perceived reality instead of the absolute reality. And we do that with no intention to let go of our views. So for cancer patients, and for us all, our reality is rooted in a rock solid idea that we create in our mind, the idea of what our life is. I'm healthy, I'm energetic. Today I have a bunch of meetings and calls. I need to go get an oil change for my car, take my kids to piano lesson, as opposed to, I gotta get up and go for my surgery. At 8 a.m., I start my chemo infusion. This afternoon, I have a blood test and a CAT scan. So what cancer made me discover is something that I found extremely crucial, is the concept of tentative. So when diagnosed with cancer, we enter in a state of limbo. And in the state of limbo, how do you make plans when you don't know what the next hour, next day, next month, next year brings? So how do we do this? Tentative. It's all tentative. It's always that way. We grow up thinking that is never tentative. The life adheres rigorously to a script that is etched in our mind. Instead, cancer forces us to learn. Today, it's not going to be that way, but this way. Tomorrow is not going to be a feel-good day, but a day enduring chemo side effects. As we do so, we inevitably and often angrily ask ourselves the question, why me? In my work as a mentor for the Cancer Hope Network, I speak very often to cancer patients. I establish friendships that go beyond my mentoring work. So I consistently advise them to never ask themselves the question, why me? Why? Because the answer is shockingly simple. Why not? Asking why me, it's a useless, painful practice that leads nowhere. When a patient, a friend, a family member, a stranger engages in finding an answer to the question, why me, we should invite them to pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and ask instead, what's present with me right now? And acknowledge the scary and disempowering feeling of not knowing. In our life, especially when we are sick, not knowing, it's a real frightening place to be. One that we avoid with all our strength as it goes against our unquenchable desire to know. But as I experience on my skin, after a while, not knowing can become a place to rest, a place to observe and achieve a deep intimacy with our existence, a place where we can find the strength and the courage to coexist with cancer. With not knowing, I am open, I'm ready, I'm willing to learn, to be surprised. I can see and hear others beyond the cacophony of my own fear-based ideas. Understanding that though my experience and acknowledgement and knowledge are important, they can get in the way, these ideas. When I let go of my own ideas, I can be present. I can be humble. And when I'm humble, I'm not afraid. I can enter this moment engaged and open to whatever it will be. Because of my familiarity with Japanese culture through martial arts and my over 2 decades of training in Zen Buddhism, I came familiar with the Japanese term called ukeireru. Ukeireru stands for acceptance, for self-acceptance, acceptance of others, and acceptance of the situation that manifests in our life. By practicing ukeireru, we learn to pause and accept the situation that life throws at us, deciding upon a course of action. By doing so, we learn not to react, which is one of the first lessons that you learn in martial arts, but rather act from a more grounded place. Ukeireru is a unique skill that reframes our mindset and that helps us reshape the concept of hope, wise hope, which I will talk about in a few minutes. Acceptance is a way of life that empowers us to see the potential for changes. Before we can change a situation, especially when we're dealing with cancer, we must accept what it is. Don't deny it. Don't just try to distract yourself, not to think about it, but accept reality as it is in the present moment. I also would like to spend a few words about the kind of language that seems to have become commonly associated with cancer. It's a military lingo, a war lingo that, in my opinion, we should try to avoid, as its use can have detrimental reverberations on patients. It came about after, in the 20th century, in the earlier 20th century, patients were called victims. Thankfully, today we don't use anymore that term. They were called victims because this was before remission became tenable for many. Back then, survival rates rarely exceeded a year or two after a malignant diagnosis. So the marketing machine started spinning their wheels, and they created this war lingo. Thankfully, now we are in a new paradigm that is characterized by a more promising future. And I think I'm standing before you after 2 cancers. However, the fighting spirit, the fighting lingo continues to have its appeal. And we often hear this combative kind of statement, oh, you can beat this, you can fight this, as encouragement before and during treatment for cancer patients. But we need to realize that even if they are common, patients are painfully aware that the outcome, it's beyond their control. There have been studies that stated that the ubiquitous use of war metaphor when referring to cancer might do more harm than good. Research showed that framing cancer in military war terms, in martial terms, prompted many patients to perceive treatment more difficult, leaving them feeling more fatalistic about their illness. So people, we need to remember that people who die from cancer don't die because they didn't fight hard enough. This should give us a pause for thought about using war terminology. The language we choose when we interact with a cancer patient has profound consequences on them. If a treatment doesn't work, if a tumor continues to progress, patients who have been led to believe that they are supposed to put up a fight against cancer may end up blaming themselves, mistakenly thinking that they lacked sufficient strength or will, when instead we know that is the treatment that failed. So the use of the war metaphor implies a level of control that cancer patients simply do not have. So what is the alternative to the warlike language? Because of my experience with cancer, I know a couple of things about facing my own mortality. So I had to find ways for myself, not just to freeze when faced with the impermanence of my life, but rather learn to be aware of it and practice acceptance. Acceptance is a formidable, incredible source of courage and hope that helps us realize that in life, there is nothing that we cannot face. We're much stronger than what we think. It helps us appreciate that there is always something that in the end, that will end our life one day. It's just that we are on a leasing contract over here. We're not here to be here forever. So we must learn to notice what comes up, what scares us, what prompts us. It prompts our mind to repel this idea of mortality and shut down. So while the shutting down, sometimes it brings us a temporary kind of relief, it doesn't help in the long run. When we are diagnosed with cancer, we instinctively react by telling ourselves that the part of me that is sick, it's not here, someplace else. We really shut our eyes closed so we don't see it. But that sick part of me, it's the absolute reality of the present moment. So we often opt not to think or talk about it, to avoid that presence in our life. But that negation prevents us from connecting to our soul, to ourselves. By doing so, we negate ourselves the love, empathy, and compassion that we deserve when we're going through cancer. So in my personal journey with cancer, I was, and I am thankful of my decades of martial arts and Zen mindful training, because it helped me to understand that rather than assuming a hand-to-hand combat stance with cancer, I relinquished my weapons. I opened my fist. I summoned all my courage. I summoned all my hope. And I invited cancer in for tea. I invited it to come in to sit with me so that we could find a way to coexist. So I have mentioned so many times the term hope. So what is hope? The most common assumption of hope is a kind of optimism or belief that particular events and conditions will unfold in a way that engenders a specific desired outcome. Our everyday hope that we grow up with, it's usually outcome or goal-based. An outcome-based hope is, I'll do one more infusion, I'll do one more radiation, and I'll be cured. The goal-based hope is, if I study hard, I'll get a prestigious degree that will secure me a great job, and I will give my family a good life, a beautiful home, things. The traditional hope that we all experience in our own ways, we need to realize that it's a closed system that encapsulates only us and our desired outcome. So, for example, I hope I can get a salary raise, buy a better car, finally afford to take that vacation in Europe. When we do that, this type of hope is a system that leaves no room, no space for anything else to permeate. This type of egotistical hope miserably fails to take into account the complexity of condition that will arise with whatever comes to be in our life. So when that kind of hope fails to yield our desired result, no bump in salary, no vacation to Europe, it leads to what? A major disappointment. So during my cancer journey, I really developed what I define the concept of wise hope. So wise hope entails a radical mind shift to abandon the traditional closed system of hope. I want this, I gotta get done. Because we said it leads to an appointment. So it requires, wise hope requires the courage to let go of our traditional way of thinking and looking at hope in a different way. Wise hope, contrary to the traditional hope, it's an open system that gives us the courage to allow in and make space for all possibilities to manifest. All possibilities, good and not so good. Wise hope makes no guarantee of outcome. So understanding that up front empowers us to appreciate that in the current situation, in life. And when we have cancer, we can only do our best. And that our desires and expectations are not tangible, are just ideas, mere fabrication of our mind with no roots in the reality of the present moment. And this is why hope helps us to suffer less disappointment. Wise hope gives us the courage to do reverse engineering. How? By taking apart our beliefs, our emotions, and see what emotion really sustained them. Wise hope, it's a journey. It's not a destination. Wise hope encompasses an emotional component that is beyond expectation, that is a crucial part of our human experience. Think about it. As a plant or a tree bends towards the sunlight, so wise hope makes cancer patients strive for survival. So wise hope enables us to respond creatively to a life-threatening illness, to conceive that as a life wake-up call, an opportunity to pause and attain a more intimate understanding of the impermanence of life and of life's incommensurable value. Though really through the lenses of wise hope, I was able to realize how many people cared and loved me. That number was just beyond what I could hope. Yes, pun intended. Wise hope makes us the greatest gardeners. It teaches us to weed out from our life those relationships that are taxing and not worth our attention in a moment when we are extremely vulnerable. It teaches us not to pass up on the great opportunity for smiling, even though there are tears in our eyes. It teaches us not to waste our precious time with useless comments and gossips. It teaches us to engage in small act of kindness. Just like holding the door for someone. Doesn't matter if at the supermarket or at the chemo center. And most important, it gives us the ability to find beauty and meaning. I repeat this, to find beauty and meaning in every manifestation of our life. The wise hope that I'm talking, it's built day by day, treatment after treatment, good days, bad days, arises from life itself. It's embedded in the journey of our life, not in our destination. Wise hope sustains us, no matter what the outcome. Wise hope, I found that it manifests when we have the courage to turn our hearts toward the good that is possible, whatever that will be. Wise hope transcends optimism and wishful thinking. For cancer patients, it really fuels the courage to dwell in the unknown of their diagnosis. So what is this unknown? The unknown, it's that scary, boundless realm of possibilities that includes also our ability to heal and survive cancer. As we said, wise hope draws no conclusions about the future. What is the future? We got to think hard about this. The future is an incessant and obsessive fabrication of thoughts. The future simply doesn't exist because it hasn't not happened yet. Though we so easily mistaking it for the reality, closing our mind instead of opening it. In counseling cancer patients, I often encourage them to open the hand of their mind, which in Zen practice describes the act of being wholeheartedly, sitting in the middle of our life, sitting in the middle of our cancer, allowing life to unfold, and clarity and wisdom to soak our existence like a gentle spring rain. Dealing with cancer unquestionably engenders emotional and physical suffering. Brain scientists have been studying for decades and explored the origin of suffering. Some have discovered some commonalities with the Buddhist teaching called the second arrow, which I want to share with you. According to the parable of the second arrow, suffering is like being shot with two arrows. The first arrow is the physical pain, the primary emotional pain, such as a cancer diagnosis or a loss of a loved one. The second arrow, though, is the one that we shoot to ourselves, is that layer of emotional reaction, of suffering, of stories, of why me question that we add to the first arrow. So while the first pain caused by the first arrow is inevitable, as going through pain is part of our existence, the second arrow is the arrow of our aversion that we feel, of our attachment. This second arrow acts as a multiplicator of our pain and our suffering. So I remember it way too well, lashing out after my diagnosis. Why? Out of all the people in the world, did I have to be the one to deal with cancer? I was shooting myself with a second arrow. There is an aphorism that exemplifies this Buddhist teaching, this parable. And the aphorism is, pain is inevitable, suffering optional. So this is at the base of the hope for cancer patients and for those who continue to ask, why me? Why me is likely the hardest question to answer with cancer diagnosis. So I would like to share with you that in my work with cancer patients and working with doctors and nurses, I have learned that when a patient poses that question, cute answers based on a superficial theological formula are completely worthless, are pointless. Instead, if we truly seek to relieve the patient's suffering and the suffering of their loved one, we must offer our ministry of presence and honor their natural emotional anguish and boundless fear that hide behind the question, why me? We need to encourage the patient to practice mindfulness, to refocus on the comfort and reassurance that come from adopting the concept of wise hope, as it really empowers to better recognize and understand the meaning we are assigning to cancer in the context of our larger life. Mindfulness practice, and I talk about this because I spent my past 25 years doing so, enables us to familiarize and notice and really become familiar with our scary cancer thoughts as they arise. And so we can learn through this mindfulness to keep the back door of our mind open so that we can let them go. We can acknowledge these scary feelings and then let them go. So one of the most profound lessons that I learned, and this was in between cancers, was from one of my Zen teachers who unfortunately passed away, but who lived the greatest part of her life with chronic pain. She shared with me what I consider really today a very profound and helpful teaching for people with cancer. Here it is, the teaching. If your pain, it's one of 10 things you are aware of, then it constitutes 1/10 of your total awareness. Expand your awareness to 100 things, and your pain, it's only 100 of your awareness. Way too many cancer patients appreciate this teaching because they are able to remove a great concentration on the pain and suffering and spread it around, diversify their approach to pain, and have the ability to live a better life with cancer. The gentleman in the picture in the next slide, maybe some of you may recognize it, is the philosopher Heraclitus. He was born in 540 BC in Ionia. Ionia is what is considered today modern Turkey. He was one of the great philosophers to come before Socrates and Plato. Much of his renown comes from his idea that nothing stays the same. In the 6th century, at the time when natural science was making its first toddler steps, and people were trying to pinpoint what was certain and stable and fixed in the universe, he said, everything flows and nothing abides. Everything gives way and nothing stays fixed. I repeat this over and over to patients with cancer, to people that are afflicted by trauma, by hard situation in life. Remember, everything in life is in flux. Everything changes. Nothing stays fixed. Have you ever seen a beautiful summer rain lasting forever? No. Have you ever experienced a snowfall that lasts forever? No. And so is our pain. And so is our life. And so is our existence. So by cultivating wise hope, we come to understand the impermanence of life. By cultivating wise hope, we can develop the kind of hope that springs from knowing that everything is in a constant state of change, that nothing is fixed, including our health, our pain, our vision of our things should be. And because of this fundamental truth, all things are possible. The impermanent, ever-changing nature of our life can cause stress, frustration, sadness, anger. Wise hope leads us to embrace impermanence, work with it, and learn to accept it so that we can come to appreciate the painful beauty of our temporary existence. So I'm coming to an end, and I hope I didn't put you to sleep with my presentation. And I want to share with you a concept and a word that is very dear to me, because having this opportunity today to speak in front of people that are helping people with cancer is one of my highest privileges. I know that I am because of all you do. So there is a word in Africa, particularly in South Africa, and it's expressed in many African dialects. The word is Ubuntu. Ubuntu roughly translates into humanity towards others, or I am because you are. Ubuntu embodies all those virtues that maintain harmony and the spirit of sharing and helping among members of society. It implies an appreciation of traditional beliefs and a constant awareness that an individual actions today are a reflection on the past and have a far-reaching consequences on the future. A person with Ubuntu knows his or her place in the universe and is consequently able to interact just as all of you do, gracefully, with other individuals. Ubuntu is a word that I believe captures Nelson Mandela's greatest gift, is recognition that we are all bound together in ways that are invisible to the eye, that there is oneness to humanity, that we achieve ourselves by sharing ourselves with others, and once again, as you do, caring for those around us. Once again, in my mindfulness training, a Buddhist training, I want to bow to you, to all the beautiful that you do to people with cancer. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm seeing, well, first of all, thank you so much for that inspiring, useful, amazing, inspirational talk. I'm seeing a lot of really great chatter in our chat room, mostly everybody just saying amazing. What I want to do is see if anybody has any questions. We have a few minutes left. Seeing so many thank yous. All right, I'm going to ask a question because I feel like as wonderful as this talk was, so much of it is for us personally, which is incredibly useful. But the first arrow, to use your analogy, in our world often seems to hit our patient. And then we have to, along with them, suffer the second arrow and sort of keep, our distance to be clinically useful to them. I wonder if you have any guidance for how we can use sort of your words and your experience for the betterment of our patients, which is the main thing we do. I mean, of course, we're important, but we're often in the position of trying to do that. And then, to use kind of our colloquialism, not take it home with us, or maybe we should take it home with us.
I'm on the board of an organization based in New Haven, Connecticut, called The Patient Is You. And what we're trying to bring into healthcare is the concept of compassion. We have a fantastic system, scientific advance of medicine. The symbiosis between technology and medicine today has made miracles, and I believe I'm one of the walking miracles. And so what we're trying to do, I believe that the best way is really for the system to have that compassion, that very profound compassion that in one end really helps medically the patients, but on the other one along as that ability to show the ministry of presence, of being with them. We, when I counsel some of our patients, I heard the story from a patient. He had to do an MRI because there was a possibility for metastasis of his pancreatic cancer. And the gentleman did the MRI, and after 3 weeks, the doctor office hadn't called yet. So we need to understand what the person might go through. We need to understand, we need to make their pain our pain in order that we can meet those people, as I always say, where they at in that moment. So it's for an healthcare professional, it's difficult because the moment that there is a minimum of emotion coming in, it's difficult to help, becomes very difficult. But we have to find, and we trying to bring teachings through this organization on how, and on the board of directors, there are very one very famous doctor who's the founder, and other doctors and individuals that have been in the nursing practice. So we teach how you can find that balance to make sure that the system cures the wound of the first arrow and prevents that there is the pain of the second arrow, because the patient doesn't feel that is followed, or there isn't a follow through, or the patient tries to call the office and nobody answers, nobody comes back to you. Unfortunately, this is an aspect that has been an exacerbation after the COVID, but that's very important. So I think that through compassion, we're going to be able to address. I don't claim that we can solve it 100%, but we can address that.
Thank you. All right, still a lot of just high praise in the chat. The questions. All right, then anybody want to come off and have some wonderful comments? Like, in this moment, we were meant to hear this message and take it forth. Thank you, from Annie.
Well, it's, I can say that nothing happens in life without a reason. Everything happens because we are at the right place at the right moment. I want to share with you another fundamental teaching that I not received, but I have absorbed with all my being from one of my teachers. And it's very difficult for us to really go by that, because we are distracted, we are confused. But remember, all you have in this moment, it's all you need. All you have in this moment is all you need. And when I say that to my cancer patients, I also explain, remember, you are never alone. It feels lonely. I can tell you, I've been there. I bought the t-shirt twice. It feels very lonely, but you're not. There is always someone that with their energy, with their thinking, with their thoughts, speaking about you, you are never alone. And you have to be able to perceive by believing into that you're never alone. Otherwise, that's why I hate the word terminology for cancer. I can give you all the machine guns and all the H-bombs that you want. Can you kill cancer with that? I don't think so. I don't think so. That's why it's not a word. It's come on in for tea. Let's sit down. Let's sip tea and find out a way to coexist. So that's why every word that we hear, every event that happens in our life, there is a reason that is beyond what we can capture. And remember, in our life, we are always convinced that we need to know everything right away. And I touched upon that. I want to share with you another teaching of Zen that goes, not knowing it's most intimate. I know it's scary, but I tried. The moment that I started to convince myself that not knowing was most intimate in my relationship with my cancers, and I should say for especially the second cancer, which was very scary, that is the moment when for some reason there was something greater than me that was giving me the power to accept. Remember, acceptance is love. Think about when you were a teenager, the first time that you fell in love with someone. What did you do? You accepted that person wholeheartedly. And there was nothing and nobody that could convince you that that person was a bad person. So that was love. That was the first. Acceptance was the first feeling of love that you have experienced. So when there is love, with love, there is courage. Literature is rife in every part of the world with action and courage of lovers. Without going too far, a mother that tries to save a child from drowning. That's love. It comes from the acceptance, becomes love. Love becomes courage. With courage, there is understanding. And that's the only way that we can deal with. When we have that understanding, we understand what are the emotions. I am part of a group I'm studying with Dr. Mark Brackett at Yale University, emotional intelligence. We need to learn to name, to recognize, to name and express our emotion. We're not good at that. I think in the best cases, 20, 30% of us can do job. But if we really are able to recognize those emotions, those are the emotions that empower us with the courage to go forward and not just put our head under the cover and say, okay, whatever happens, happens. The gift of life is incommensurable. We cannot give up on it. I didn't give up.
Claudio, so thank you again for this inspirational talk. I'm seeing a lot of folks chatting, saying how helpful this is to them, one going off to help a patient with pancreatic cancer. So we are just over the top of the hour, and I know people have to go. But again, on behalf of the whole ReVital team, thank you for spending your time and your wisdom with us. I'm sure we will have you back at some point in the future.
Thank you, everybody. Stay healthy, stay safe, and be blessed.
Claudio, just wanted to say thank you so much. This is Hillary. We were able to meet in DC earlier this year.
Yes,
and I just wanted to say this talk, the first time I heard you speak and then hearing you today, not only is this so relevant for all of our patients and the things they're experiencing, but just you're such an inspiration and such a mindset shift for any of the challenges that we may face just being part of this multidisciplinary team. So you have a patient in front of you, rather than frustration of insurance coverage or trying to help get them or be their advocate, sit down with those problems and really have the conversation with them so we can best to help navigate the patients. And so thank you for that lens from so many different angles and for sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. I am extremely grateful for your kind words. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.